Hello, welcome to our very first video homework and the very first video for our brand new 7th grade content. I hope you guys are all as excited as I am to get started. So our title of our notes are going to be Converting Fractions to Decimals and the date. Here's a picture of what my notes look like, and I will be posting them on the website that you found this video. So if I were you, I would pull up these pictures right next to your video, so then you can kind of use it as an example of how you're going to take your notes. I don't just copy down the notes, I just want you to use it as a guide. Eventually this will be gone and you guys will be expected to take notes like this. Alright, so we just talked about the title, converting fractions to decimals, and the date. Alright, so underneath it you're going to write objective, which is I will be able to convert fractions to decimals. That's what we're working on today. Then you should draw that horizontal line and then the vertical line going down over an inch or two, like my picture. And our term that we've already gone over, but I just want to refresh, is rational number. So the term goes on the left side, and then the definition goes on the right. So rational number is the quotient of two integers, which can be terminating or repeating decimals. All right. So the quotient of two integers means a fraction. The quotient of two integers means a fraction. And an example of that is 1/4. It could be any fraction, 1/3, 2/5, 1.5. I mean, we've gone over fractions so much. So any fraction is a rational number. Terminating decimal is a decimal that ends. So an example is 0.25, which actually 1/4 is equal to 0.25. Just to let you guys know that. So that is a terminating decimal. Other examples of terminating decimals would be 0.1, 0.3, 0.42. I mean, there's lots of different terminating decimals that we could talk about. Those are just a few examples. And then the last one is repeating decimal, which is a decimal that repeats and goes on forever and ever. So a common example is 0.3 repeating, and when we say 3 repeating, that's that little line that's above it. 0.3 repeating is the line that goes above it. It doesn't just have to repeat one number, it could repeat multiple. So we could do 1.752, and 752 would be repeating, so it'd be 1.752, 752, 752. In that case, the line would be over the 7, 5, and the 2. So that's another example of repeating decimal. Alright, so let's get into actually how do we convert a fraction to a decimal. So as you guys know and hopefully recall, 2/10 is a fraction, and fractions can be read and written as division problems. Remember that bar, that fraction bar, is the same thing as the division symbol. Alright, so 2/10, you can also read it as 2 divided by 10. So when we are trying to find the decimal, you simply just write it as a fraction, or I'm sorry, not as a fraction, as a division problem. Alright, so hopefully we can make this pretty neat here. So 2 divided by, so 2's in the house, 10. Okay, and we just talked about dividing decimals, and you might ask me, Miss Sandwich, this isn't a decimal. Well, when you ask yourself, can 10 go into 2? No, the 10 can't go into 2. So you have to, oops, go back. Oh no. So you can't do 10 divided by, 10 can't go into 2. So you have to put that decimal. So your decimal goes here, and you need to add your zeros. So how many times does 10 go into 2? Well, we know that it goes in 2 times. So we already said 0, it goes in 10. 2 times 10 is 20. 20 minus 20 is 0. Alright, so 2/10 is equal to 0.2. Okay, 2/10 is equal to 0.2. Alright, so the next one that we're going to talk about is 48 over 100. 48 over 100. So the same thing, it's a division problem. 48 divided by 100. So we're going to do our division bar. We have 48, and we're dividing it by 100. Okay, so we know that 100 can't go into 48, so we need to add our decimals and some zeros. So we'll just add 1 0 for now. We might need to add more, so don't forget about our decimal up there and our 0. Okay, so how many times does 100 go into 480? We know that it goes in 4 times. So 480 minus 400, which is equal to 80. We need to add that 0, bring it down. 800, how many times does 100 go into 800? The answer is 8. It's pretty bad handwriting, I apologize. Just figured this would be better than typing it. Okay, so now we have 0 left. So 48 over 100 is the same thing as writing 0.48. Right? It's as simple as that. So those have come out pretty easy, pretty even. Both of them have been terminating decimals. Now, that's not always going to be the case. So let's try 3/7. Now 3/7 isn't going to be a terminating decimal, but we can still figure out an approximate decimal. Alright, so the same thing, we do 3 divided by 7, 3 divided by 7, and we'll probably need this, and we'll start with 1 0. Okay, and we can't forget about our decimal up here, and the 0. Okay, so how many times does 7 go into 30? Well, we know that 7 goes into 30 4 times, because 7 times 4 is 28. 28, and when we go 30 minus 28, we get 2. We gotta add the 0 and bring that down. How many times does 7 go into 20? We know that it goes in 2 times, and we get 14. 20 minus 14 is 6. Add a 0, bring it down. How many times does 7 go into 60? Well, we know that it goes in 8 times, because 8 times 7 is 56. So we notice that, so if we do 56, we know that it'll be 40, and we're just going to stop there. It's just going to keep going, okay? So if I ask you to round to the nearest hundredth, this is the 10th hundredths place. We know that 3/7 is approximately, so 3/7 is approximately equal to 0.4, and we need to round because 8's bigger than 5 for 3, okay? We could have kept going. I might ask you to round to the 1,000th place. So if that's the case, then we would need to go find one more digit and then round from there. All right, so we can do it with repeating decimals as well. Okay, and the last one that we're going to do is, I'm sorry, that 3/7 was a non-repeating decimal, okay? Okay, so 2/3 is the last one, and this is going to be our repeating decimal. So 2 divided by 3, so 2's in the house, 2 divided by 3. We'll get the decimal place started. So how many times does 3 go into 20? Well, we know that it goes in 6 times. 3 times 6 is 18. Alright, 20 minus 18 is 2. We have to carry that 0 down. We have 20 again. And so once again, we're going to have 6, 18, and 2. And as you guys can see, that's going to be a pattern. It's going to go on forever. So 2/3 is equal to 0.6 repeating forever. Okay? So that's how we find fractions and change them into decimals. So now the next part of your notes that I want you to do is write down any questions that you might have. So any things that you didn't understand, anything that you need clarification on that we will go over in class. I want you to write down any questions that, maybe you got it and you understand it right now. Well, then I want you to write down questions, maybe, why is this relevant? Why are we going to be using this? What's the next step? What are we doing next? Anything that's relevant to what we just talked about today, I need you to write it down. So that you need to have at least 2 questions. So thank you for being active listeners, and I hope that you guys have a great night, and I will see you in class.